Ladies and gentlemen, there's a strange pattern that keeps repeating in your life, and you've probably noticed it, but never quite understood why it happens. Money comes in, and almost immediately it's gone. You get a raise, and somehow your expenses mysteriously increase to match it. You finally save a little cushion, and then boom, an unexpected crisis devours every penny you managed to set aside. It's like there's an invisible force field around financial abundance that repels you every single time you get close to actually breaking through. Most people live their entire lives trapped in this exhausting loop, convinced that they're just unlucky or that wealth simply isn't meant for people like them. They accept the struggle as normal, as inevitable, as just the way things are. But what if this acceptance is precisely what keeps the cage locked? What if the very moment you stop seeing your financial situation as a fixed reality is the exact instant where everything begins to shift? Florence Scovel Shinn spent years studying why some people seem to effortlessly attract prosperity while others work themselves to exhaustion and remain broke. What she discovered wasn't about talent, education, or even hard work. She uncovered something far more radical, a spiritual blueprint operating behind the scenes of your financial life, one that's been running on autopilot, producing the same results over and over again without your conscious awareness. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Here's what most people don't realize. Your bank account isn't reflecting your effort or your worth. It's reflecting a set of invisible beliefs and spiritual patterns that were probably programmed into you before you were even old enough to question them. Has this ever happened to you? You make a decision about money, and later you realize it was the exact same decision your parents would have made, or your grandparents before them. It's like you're reading from a script you didn't write, following financial rules you never consciously agreed to. The really unsettling part, these patterns don't just influence your decisions. They actually shape the opportunities that come your way, the people you attract into your life, and even the timing of when money shows up or disappears. It's not magic or superstition. It's the way consciousness interacts with material reality. Something ancient wisdom traditions understood intuitively and modern quantum physics is now beginning to confirm scientifically. Stay with me until the end because we're about to explore why your specific financial struggle isn't random bad luck and more. Importantly, why the solution has nothing to do with the typical advice you've been following unsuccessfully for years. What you're about to discover operates on a completely different frequency, one that bypasses normal cause and effect and opens doorways that seemed permanently sealed just moments ago. Something is trying to break through into your awareness right now, and the fact that these words found you at this precise moment carries more significance than you might initially recognize. There are moments in life that arrive quietly without fanfare or announcement, yet they carry the weight of destiny. You might not recognize them immediately because they disguise themselves as ordinary days, random clicks, chance encounters, but something inside you knows there's a stirring in your spirit, an inexplicable pull that made you pause right here, right now, when you could have scrolled past like you've done 1,000 times before. Florence Scovel Shinn called these threshold moments, those rare intersections where the invisible realm leans in close and whispers that your season of waiting is coming to an end. Think about how you arrived here. Was it truly random? Or was it that persistent inner knowing that something needs to change, that you can't continue carrying this weight much longer? Because that's the hidden truth about financial transformation. It rarely begins with external circumstances shifting first. It starts with an internal recognition, a moment when you stop pretending everything is fine and acknowledge the battles you've been fighting behind closed doors. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Those sleepless nights when anxiety wraps around your chest like a vice. When you lie there calculating numbers that refuse to cooperate, wondering how you'll make it through another month, another week, sometimes even another day. The exhaustion of wearing a mask in public, smiling and nodding while internally you're drowning in pressure that nobody else can see. You've become an expert at hiding it. The stress lines that appear when you're alone. The panic that floods through you when unexpected bills arrive. The shame that burns when you have to decline invitations because you simply can't afford them. This invisible boulder you've been carrying has shaped your decisions, limited your choices, and convinced you that this is just how life works for you. But what if the very struggle itself is actually a signal? What if the intensity of the pressure you're experiencing right now isn't evidence that you're failing, but rather confirmation that you're standing at the exact point where breakthrough becomes possible? Florence Scovel Shinn discovered that transformation never happens in comfort zones. It emerges from the crucible of desperation when the old way of living becomes so unbearable that your consciousness has no choice but to expand into something new. Now, I want to go even deeper into this revelation because understanding the mechanics of what's been blocking you changes everything. There's a specific reason why your efforts haven't produced the results you deserve, and it has nothing to do with your work ethic or your intelligence. Write in the comments, "I'm ready for this shift," if something inside you recognizes this truth. Here's what makes this moment particularly painful for so many people. You look at the calendar and realize another year is slipping away. And despite all your efforts, despite every promise you made to yourself last January, the fundamental reality of your financial situation remains virtually unchanged. The same bills are waiting in your inbox. The same debt is compounding with interest that never sleeps. The same anxiety greets you every morning when you wake up and every night when you try to fall asleep. It's like running on a treadmill that never stops, exhausting yourself while somehow staying in exactly the same place. If this resonates with you and you want to continue this journey of financial and spiritual transformation, make sure to subscribe to the channel. There's so much more we're going to unpack together about unlocking the abundance that's already assigned to you. You've tried everything, haven't you? You've read the books about budgeting and downloaded the apps that track every penny. You've cut expenses until there's nothing left to cut. Sacrificed the small pleasures that made life bearable. Worked extra hours until you're physically depleted. Maybe you've even started that side hustle everyone talks about, grinding away your evening and weekends for a few extra dollars that disappear as quickly as they arrive. And still the needle barely moves. Still, you're trapped in this relentless cycle that seems designed to keep you exactly where you are. The hidden truth that nobody wants to acknowledge is this: all those surface-level solutions you've been implementing are like rearranging furniture on a sinking ship. They're not addressing the actual problem. Florence Scovel Shinn understood something that most financial advisors completely miss. Your bank account is not the source of your financial struggle. It's merely the symptom, the visible manifestation of something operating at a much deeper level of reality. There's an entire dimension of existence where your financial destiny is being shaped right now. Invisible forces and spiritual laws that determine whether money flows toward you or perpetually evades your grasp. And until you learn to work with these forces instead of against them, nothing will fundamentally change. Think about it. You know people who seem to stumble into money effortlessly, who make decisions that would terrify you yet somehow always land on their feet. Meanwhile, you're doing everything right according to conventional wisdom and you're still struggling. That disparity isn't about luck or privilege or secret knowledge. They have that, you don't. It's about operating frequency, about the invisible blueprint that's been running your financial reality on autopilot without your conscious participation. The impact of understanding this goes far beyond just making more money. It transforms your entire relationship with abundance, security, and what's actually possible for your life. But here's where the journey gets really interesting, because once you recognize that the battle isn't happening where you thought it was, everything opens up in ways you couldn't have imagined from your current vantage point. Type in the comments, "I see it differently now," if this is landing somewhere deep inside you. What you're about to understand might feel uncomfortable at first because it challenges the sanitized version of reality that most people accept without question. Behind the scenes of your visible financial struggle, There are invisible forces actively working to keep you stuck exactly where you are. These aren't just abstract concepts or metaphors. They're real patterns of energy and consciousness that operate with ruthless efficiency, blocking the flow of prosperity before it can reach you, sabotaging opportunities just as they're about to materialize, draining resources through channels you can't even see clearly enough to close. Florence Scovel Shinn spent years mapping out how these forces function, and what she discovered go so much deeper than the positive thinking platitudes that get recycled endlessly on social media. Affirmations written on sticky notes won't dissolve these blockages. Vision boards won't dismantle the infrastructure that's been built around your lack, because we're not talking about surface-level mindset work here. We're talking about spiritual architecture, about laws that govern how abundance moves through the universe, and why it's been systematically redirected away from you. The revelation that changes everything is recognizing that the universe has witnessed your entire journey. Every tear you've cried over unpaid bills, every moment of humiliation when your card was declined, every sacrifice you made while watching people less deserving than you somehow glide through life in effortless prosperity. None of it went unnoticed. There's a cosmic ledger being kept, a record of everything that's been withheld from you unfairly. And ancient spiritual principles teach us that nothing in this universe remains unbalanced forever. What's been taken will be restored. What's been delayed will be accelerated. What's been blocked will suddenly burst open. But here's the critical distinction. These aren't mechanical laws you manipulate through technique or formula. They're living principles that respond to alignment, to recognition, to the moment where your consciousness finally shifts from seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances to understanding yourself as a participant in creation itself. The transformation happens not through doing more, but through seeing differently, through recognizing the hidden truth that your financial reality isn't fixed. It's fluid, responsive, waiting for you to claim the authority that's been yours all along, but that you've never fully exercised. The impact of grasping this goes beyond just receiving money. It restructures how you move through the world, the decisions you make, the opportunities you recognize, the faith you carry into uncertain situations. And right now, in this specific window of time, something is shifting in the invisible realm that makes breakthrough not just possible, but inevitable for those who understand what's actually happening. Put down in the comments, "I claim my authority." If you're beginning to sense the magnitude of what we're uncovering here, I need you to really absorb what I'm about to say, because it contradicts everything your current circumstances are screaming at you. The financial reality you're experiencing right now, the stress, the limitations, the constant worry, this is not your final destination. What you're living through is simply the last chapter of an old story, and whether you realize it or not, you're standing at the precise moment when the entire narrative is about to be rewritten. Not someday when conditions improve, not next year when you finally get your act together. Right now, in this exact moment, as you're processing these words, Florence Scovel Shinn discovered something that sounds almost impossible until you experience it yourself. There are specific windows in time when the invisible forces governing your life suddenly become malleable, when decisions made in the spiritual realm cascade into your physical reality with unstoppable momentum. Think of it like a cosmic alignment, where the barriers that have been holding back your financial breakthrough become permeable, where walls that seem solid suddenly reveal themselves as illusion that dissolve the moment you stop believing in their permanence. The hidden truth is that these prophetic moments don't announce themselves with trumpets and dramatic signs. They arrive disguised as ordinary afternoons, as random videos that appear in your feed, as seemingly insignificant choices to keep reading or scroll away. But for those who have eyes to see, the signs are everywhere. That restlessness you've been feeling lately, that sense of urgency that time is running out, that inexplicable knowing that something needs to shift before this year ends. These aren't anxious thoughts to be dismissed. They're spiritual signals that you've entered a threshold period, a junction point where the future you've been tolerating and the future you've been dreaming about are standing side by side, waiting for you to choose. The transformation that's trying to break through isn't about gradual improvement or incremental progress. We're talking about a fundamental recalibration of your entire relationship with money and abundance, a shift so complete that you'll look back at this moment and recognize it as the turning point where everything changed. Behind the scenes, while you're sitting here right now, there are movements happening in dimensions you can't perceive with physical senses. Resources being redirected, opportunities being prepared, divine appointments being scheduled, all converging toward a single point of manifestation in your life. The impact of recognizing this window for what it truly is cannot be overstated, because the decisions you make in the next few moments will determine how quickly what's already been set in motion materializes in your bank account. Write in the comments, "My moment is now." If you're feeling this shift activating inside you, there's a reason why certain moments in history produce an unusual concentration of breakthroughs. Why some periods seem to birth more miracles, more sudden reversals, more inexplicable transformations than others. It's not random, it's alignment. When cosmic forces converge in specific configurations, when spiritual laws intersect with human readiness, barriers that seemed impenetrable suddenly become permeable. Walls that block every previous attempt simply dissolve. And the fascinating part is that these windows often look completely ordinary from the outside. They don't arrive with dramatic music or flashing lights. They show up as a quiet Tuesday afternoon, as a video that caught your attention, as a decision to keep listening instead of clicking away. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that the universe operates in seasons and cycles. And we entered a particularly potent window right now. Your money story, the narrative that's been running your financial life on autopilot for years, maybe even decades. This story must shift before January 1st, 2026. Not maybe, not hopefully, if conditions align perfectly. Must shift. And I'm not saying that to create artificial urgency or manipulate you into action. I'm saying it because something far more powerful than your individual effort has already been set in motion behind the scenes, and it's accelerating toward manifestation. Whether you consciously participate or not, the question is whether you'll recognize what's happening and align yourself with it, or whether you'll remain oblivious while this wave of transformation passes you by. Think about every major turning point in your life. They all arrived disguised as ordinary moments until you looked back and realized that single decision, that chance encounter, that seemingly insignificant choice completely altered your trajectory. This is one of those moments. The difference is that right now, you have the advantage of recognizing it while it's happening rather than only in hindsight. Behind the scenes of your visible reality, there's a massive reorganization taking place. Files are being moved to the top of someone's desk. Your name is dropping into someone's consciousness at exactly the right time. Connections are being forged between people who will become instrumental in your financial breakthrough. Resources that were locked up are being released. Opportunities that were invisible are suddenly becoming visible. And all of this is happening not because you finally earned it or because you've somehow become worthy, but because divine timing has reached a crescendo that demands immediate response. The journey you're on has been building toward this specific convergence point, and the impact of what's about to unfold will extend far beyond just the next few weeks or months. Put down in the comments, "I align with this breakthrough," if you're choosing to participate consciously in what's already in motion. What I'm about to tell you operates in a realm that most people never even consider. Yet, it's the very foundation upon which your entire financial reality rests. Right now, in dimensions you cannot see with your physical eyes, there's a divine rewriting taking place. It's not happening in your bank account yet. That's just where the evidence will eventually show up. It's happening in the invisible architecture of possibility in the quantum field, where potential futures exist before they solidify into physical form. Circumstances are being reordered, opportunities are being aligned, resources are being redirected, And all of it is being orchestrated specifically for you with surgical precision. Florence Scovel Shinn understood something that sounds almost too simple to be true. Yet it's the master key that unlocks everything. Reality is constructed from the inside out, not the outside in. Your external world, that bank account, balance, those bills, that debt, those missed opportunities, they're not creating your internal state. It's the reverse. Your external world is nothing more than a mirror, reflecting back the programming running in your subconscious mind. Beliefs so deeply embedded that you don't even recognize them as beliefs anymore. You experience them as just the way things are. Think about it. You've probably noticed that no matter how much your circumstances change on the surface, certain patterns keep repeating. Different jobs, same financial struggle, different relationships, same dynamics, different cities, same problems. That's because you're taking the blueprint with you everywhere you go. The hidden truth that most people spend their entire lives missing is that trying to change your financial situation by manipulating external circumstances alone is like rearranging reflections in a mirror and expecting your actual face to change. It's backward, it's exhausting, and it never produces lasting transformation. If you felt something shift inside you while watching this, if those chains started breaking or that atmosphere changed around your finances, go ahead and hit that like button. It's a simple way to acknowledge the transformation that's beginning in your life right now. The real work, the work that actually shifts everything, happens in the realm of consciousness, in that invisible space where decisions get made before you're even aware you're making them, where beliefs operate like silent architects designing every outcome you experience. When Florence Scovel Shinn talked about the power of the word, she wasn't being poetic or metaphorical. She was pointing to something scientifically verifiable. Your thoughts, your words, your internal dialogue are literally created. The template that your physical reality organizes itself around. Change the template, and the manifestation has no choice but to change with it. Behind the scenes of your awareness, every belief you hold about money is either opening pathways or closing them, attracting resources or repelling them. And the journey toward financial freedom begins the moment you recognize that you are not a victim of external circumstances, but the author of internal programming. Type in the comments, "I rewrite my story," if this revelation is shifting something fundamental in how you see your situation. What's happening in the spiritual realm right now carries a certainty that transcends hope or wishful thinking. There's an invisible blueprint being drawn, a design for your financial future that's been set in motion with such force that it cannot be delayed by doubt, denied by circumstances, or diverted by obstacles. This isn't about manifesting through sheer willpower or positive affirmation. This is about recognizing that decisions have already been made in dimensions beyond your conscious control, and those decisions are now filtering down into your tangible reality with inevitable precision. The transformation you're experiencing goes so much deeper than just getting more money in your account. It's a complete recalibration of your relationship with abundance itself, a fundamental rewiring of how you understand security, provision, and what you're actually capable of attracting into your life. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that when you align with spiritual law, you stop begging for blessings and start claiming what already belongs to you by divine right. The shift from scarcity consciousness to abundance consciousness isn't philosophical. It's practical. And it changes every decision you make from this point forward. Here's where most people get tripped up though. They think transformation operates on human timelines, that they need to wait for January 1st to start fresh or for the perfect circumstance to finally align, or for some future moment when they feel more prepared. But divine timing doesn't consult your calendar or wait for your permission. When the invisible realm decides it's time for your breakthrough, it moves immediately, urgently now, because you need it now. Not when you're more worthy, not when you've suffered enough, not when you've finally figured everything out. The universe responds to necessity, to the breaking point where the old way of living becomes completely unsustainable and something new must emerge. Think about every major breakthrough you've witnessed in your own life or in the lives of others. They rarely arrived during comfortable, convenient seasons. They showed up in crisis moments at 3 in the morning when desperation reached its peak, in situations where there was nowhere left to turn except toward a solution that had been invisible just moments before. The impact of understanding this pattern means you stop resisting the pressure you're currently under and start recognizing it as confirmation that you're exactly where you need to be for transformation to occur. Behind the scenes, while you're reading these words, the machinery of divine providence is already engaged, processing your situation, coordinating resources, and preparing to deliver what's been promised with a timing so precise it will leave no doubt that something beyond ordinary cause and effect has intervened on your behalf. Write in the comments, divine timing is perfect. If you're surrendering your need to control when and how this unfolds, there's a pattern woven throughout human history that reveals something profound about how transformation actually works. Miracles don't arrive during comfortable seasons, when everything is manageable and you're coasting along just fine. They erupt in moments of crisis, when the pressure becomes so unbearable that you can't endure another single day under the weight of it. When your back is against the wall and every conventional solution has failed, that's when the impossible suddenly becomes possible. Florence Scovel Shinn observed this again and again. Breakthrough arrives precisely when the old way of living becomes completely unsustainable, when staying where you are hurts more than the fear of stepping into unknown territory. That intensity you've been feeling, that sense of urgency that's been building in your chest like a scream you can't release, it's not a sign that you're failing. It's confirmation that you've reached a critical point, a threshold where transformation isn't just possible, but inevitable. Your financial struggle has pushed you to the exact edge where the universe has no choice but to respond. And it has responded by orchestrating this divine interruption, by bringing these words into your awareness at the precise moment when you're ready to receive them. Even if you don't feel ready, heaven isn't calling your name in some abstract metaphorical sense that makes you feel warm, but changes nothing. This is concrete. This is real. This is divine intelligence recognizing that you've arrived at a junction point where intervention is required, where the natural order of things must be disrupted to make room for something supernatural to break through. The hidden truth here is that the universe doesn't wait for you to have everything figured out. It doesn't demand that you be perfect or completely healed or fully prepared. It responds to desperation, to genuine need, to the cry that comes from the deepest part of your being when you've exhausted every other option. Behind the scenes, your crisis is functioning like a beacon, sending out signals that attract solutions, operating at frequencies you weren't previously tuned into. The impact of reaching this critical point is that doors which were sealed tight yesterday suddenly swing open today, not because circumstances changed externally, but because your internal state shifted into alignment with what was always available but previously inaccessible. The journey from where you are to where you're going doesn't require years of preparation. It requires a single moment of recognition, one decision to stop resisting what's trying to emerge, and instead surrender to the transformation that's already underway. Put down in the comments, "I've reached my turning point," if you recognize yourself in this description. Before this year closes, before January 1st, 2026 arrives, and a new calendar begins, something is going to happen in your financial reality that defies logical explanation. I'm not speaking in vague generalities or hopeful possibilities. I'm telling you that you're going to see actual movement in accounts that have been stagnant for months, maybe even years. Patterns that seemed permanently locked in place are going to shift. Resources that appeared completely inaccessible are suddenly going to become available. And when it happens, you'll know beyond any shadow of doubt that something beyond your own effort has intervened on your behalf. Florence Scovel Shinn had a phrase for this phenomenon that captures it perfectly. She called it the hand of the Ikai side infinite touching your affairs. When that contact occurs, when divine intelligence reaches into your circumstance and makes direct contact with your situation, everything changes. Natural laws that normally govern how money flows, how opportunities appear, how resources accumulate. These laws suddenly bend to accommodate supernatural possibilities. What should take months happens in days. What seemed impossible yesterday becomes inevitable today. Doors that were sealed by every conventional standard swing open for no reason that makes sense on paper. The hidden truth operating here is that you're not bound by the same limitations that govern people who are operating purely in the natural realm, relying solely on human effort and strategy. You have access to a dimension of provision that exists outside the closed system of supply and demand, outside the constraints of economic conditions, outside the predictable patterns that financial experts base their forecasts on. Behind the scenes of your visible struggle, there's an invisible infrastructure being built, pathways being established, connections being forged, all preparing for a sudden influx of resources that will arrive through channels you didn't even know existed. The impact of understanding this goes beyond just receiving money. It fundamentally alters your relationship with fear and scarcity. When you grasp that supernatural intervention is not only possible but already in motion, you stop operating from desperation and start making decisions from a place of certainty. The journey you're on has been leading to this precise convergence point, where human limitation meets divine possibility, where your exhausted effort encounters supernatural assistance, and the collision between these two realms produces results that leave you speechless. Now, I want to take you even deeper into what's required from you to fully participate in what's already been set in motion, because passive observation won't activate what needs to happen next. Type in the comments, "I receive supernatural provision," if you're opening yourself to intervention that transcends normal cause and effect. There's something I need you to understand about the power residing in your own mouth. Something that sounds almost too simple to be true, yet operates at the most fundamental level of reality itself. Words are not just sounds that vibrate through the air and then dissipate into nothingness. They're creative forces that literally shape reality at the quantum level, restructuring the field of possibility around you with every syllable you speak. Every ancient tradition understood this implicitly. The Hebrews spoke of creating through divine utterance. Eastern philosophies recognized the vibration of sacred sound. Indigenous wisdom honored the power of spoken intention. And now, modern science is catching up, confirming through rigorous intention studies and quantum observation experiments that consciousness interacts with matter in ways we're only beginning to comprehend. Florence Scovel Shinn built her entire teaching on this foundation, that your voice carries an electromagnetic frequency that doesn't just express your thoughts, but actually rearranges the molecules of possibility hovering around your life. When you speak with genuine authority, not from ego but from alignment with spiritual truth, something activates in your nervous system. Your energy field shifts. The atmosphere around you becomes charged with creative potential behind the scenes in dimensions you cannot measure with instruments but can definitely feel with awareness. Your declarations are opening pathways and clothing others, attracting certain outcomes while repelling alternatives. The hidden truth that most people miss is that they've been speaking unconsciously their entire lives, repeating limiting narratives they inherited from parents, society, past failures. They say things like, "I can never get ahead," or "money always slips through my fingers," or "I'm just not good with finances," and they think these are harmless observations about reality, when in fact, they're commands that reality obeys with ruthless precision. The transformation begins the moment you recognize that you're not describing your circumstances with your words. You're creating them, reinforcing them, giving them permission to continue dominating your experience. The impact of taking conscious control of what you speak cannot be overstated, because the journey from lack to abundance requires more than just thinking differently. It requires speaking a new reality into existence with such conviction that the universe has no choice but to reorganize itself around your declaration. And right now, in this threshold moment we've been building toward, there's a specific declaration you need to make that will function like a key turning in a lock. Write in the comments, "My words create my reality," if you're ready to wield this power with intention, instead of letting it operate on autopilot right now. We need to address something that might make you uncomfortable. But ignoring it any longer would be doing you a disservice. Nothing changes in the natural world, not your bank account, not your opportunities, not your financial patterns, until something gets confronted in the spiritual realm. Those invisible forces we talked about earlier, they've been operating unchallenged for so long that they've become part of the background noise of your life. Unconscious programs running on autopilot, inherited mindsets about scarcity that you absorbed before you were old enough to question whether they were actually true. And these forces thrive in the shadows, in the parts of your awareness you'd rather not examine too closely. Florence Scovel Shinn identified a specific pattern that appears throughout spiritual texts under various names, but she called it the devourer, an invisible energy that functions like a leak in your financial pipeline. You can pour water into a bucket all day long, work yourself to exhaustion filling it up, but if there's a hole in the bottom, you'll never accumulate anything. This is what's been happening in your finances. Money comes in and immediately gets consumed by emergencies that seem to materialize out of nowhere, by unexpected bills that arrive with suspicious timing, by opportunities that dissolve just before they can produce fruit. The hidden truth is that this isn't bad luck or poor planning. It's a systematic draining mechanism that operates below the level of your conscious control, siphoning off resources before they can establish themselves in your life. Behind the scenes, this devourer has been eating your seed before it can grow into a harvest, consuming your opportunities before they can mature into results, stealing the momentum you build before it can translate into sustainable progress. And the reason it's been so effective is because you didn't know it existed. You can't fight an enemy you can't see. You can't close a leak you don't know is there. The transformation that needs to happen now requires you to stop blaming yourself for outcomes that were never fully under your control and instead recognize that there's been spiritual interference operating in your financial life. The impact of naming this force, of bringing it out of the shadows and into conscious awareness, is that it immediately begins losing its grip. The journey forward demands confrontation, a willingness to face what's been hiding in plain sight and speak directly to the patterns that have been running unchallenged for far too long. Now, I want to show you exactly how this devourer has been operating in your specific situation, because once you see the pattern clearly, you can't unsee it. Put down in the comments, "I see what's been stealing from me," if this is resonating with your experience. There's another layer to this that operates with almost surgical precision. And once you recognize the pattern, you'll see it everywhere in your financial history. It's what spiritual traditions call the spirit of delay. And it doesn't stop your blessings from coming. That would be too obvious. Instead, it postpones them just long enough to create maximum frustration, to make you question whether anything good is ever going to materialize. Your promotion gets delayed indefinitely while someone less qualified gets fast-tracked. That payment you're owed gets stuck in bureaucratic limbo for no logical reason. The inheritance that should have come to you gets tangled in legal complications that drag on for months or years. Ideas that could generate significant income somehow never materialize into action. Always finding reasons to stay in the planning phase without ever launching into reality. Florence Scovel Shinn observed this pattern repeatedly. People on the verge of breakthrough suddenly encountering inexplicable obstacles that appeared out of nowhere, delays that defied rational explanation. The hidden truth is that these aren't random inefficiencies or bad timing. They're coordinated interference designed to wear you down, to make you give up right before you cross the finish line, to convince you that prosperity just isn't meant for people like you. Behind the scenes, this spirit of delay has been manipulating your timeline, pushing back what should have arrived on schedule, creating gaps between your effort and your reward that eventually train you to stop expecting good things to happen. But here's where everything shifts, where hope floods back in with force. There's an ancient promise that Florence Scovel Shinn anchored her entire restoration teaching on, and it carries the weight of divine guarantee. The text says explicitly, "I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten," not some of the years, not a portion of what was lost. Every single year of financial struggle, every wasted opportunity where you were overlooked, undervalued, every stolen blessing that should have been yours but got diverted elsewhere. All of it is marked for restoration. The transformation that's about to occur in your finances isn't a gentle recovery where you slowly climb back to zero. It's a quantum leap that compresses decades of accumulated blessings into concentrated bursts of supernatural provision. When divine restoration activates, you don't just recover what you lost, you receive interest on the delay, compensation for the struggle, reward for persevering when you had every reason to quit. The impact of this principle means that every year you spent barely surviving is about to be converted into overflow. Every season of drought exchanged for abundance, and the journey you've been on suddenly makes sense as preparation rather than punishment. Type in the comments, "I claim my restoration," if something in your spirit is awakening to the reality of this promise. Understanding restoration the way Florence Scovel Shinn taught it completely revolutionizes what you should be expecting in the coming weeks. This isn't about slowly crawling your way back to financial stability over the next 5 years. This isn't about penny pinching your way out of debt through sheer discipline and sacrifice. When divine restoration activates in your life, it operates more like a slingshot than a ladder. The further back you've been pulled, the more explosive the forward momentum when you're finally released. You don't just recover what you lost. You receive interest on every year of delay, compensation for every season of struggle, reward for persevering through circumstances that would have destroyed most people. Think about what this actually means for your specific situation. Every sacrifice you made while watching others prosper effortlessly. Every humiliation you endured when your resources fell short. Every sleepless night spent worrying about how you'd make it through another month. The universe has been keeping precise records. Behind the scenes, there's an accounting system operating that makes sure nothing you've been through gets wasted or forgotten. The impact of this truth is that your breakthrough won't be proportional to your current effort. It will be proportional to your accumulated struggle, which means it's going to be bigger than anything you could orchestrate through natural means alone. Right now, in this exact moment, something needs to be spoken with authority that cuts through every invisible barrier that's been holding back your financial freedom. Every spirit of delay that's been manipulating your timeline must be broken now, not eventually, not when conditions improve now. Those payments that have been stuck in mysterious holding patterns for weeks or months, they're being released as we speak. Opportunities that were blocked by invisible barriers you couldn't see or name, they're suddenly becoming accessible again. The red tape that's been strangling your progress is dissolving. The bureaucratic complications that made no logical sense are resolving. The people who forgot about you are remembering your name at exactly the right time. The transformation happening in this moment isn't passive. It requires your active participation, your willingness to speak directly to the forces that have been operating unchallenged and command them to release their grip on your finances. The journey you've been on has been training you for this precise moment when you stop being a victim of circumstances and step into the authority that's been yours all along, but that you've been too exhausted or defeated to claim. Now, I want to show you the specific declaration that needs to come out of your mouth right now, because words spoken in this threshold moment carry exponential power compared to words spoken in ordinary time. Write in the comments, "Every delay is broken." Now, if you're ready to exercise this authority over your financial situation, something just shifted in the atmosphere around your life, and whether you felt it consciously or not, A decision was made in the spiritual realm that changes everything. Financial stagnation has an expiration date, and you just stamped it. That endless cycle you've been trapped in, where money comes and goes without ever accumulating, where opportunities appear and dissolve before producing fruit, where you work harder than everyone around you but somehow stay in the same place year after year. That pattern doesn't get to continue past this moment. Every chain that's been wrapped around your income, limiting your potential and capping your possibilities, those chains are breaking link by link as your consciousness makes the fundamental shift from victim to victor. Florence Scovel Shinn understood something that most people miss entirely, something that separates those who experience genuine breakthrough from those who stay stuck chasing empty promises. Your financial transformation isn't based on maybe, hopefully, or if conditions align perfectly. It's not subject to economic trends or dependent on getting lucky or contingent on circumstances beyond your control. It's based on divine promises that function like spiritual contracts, unbreakable agreements woven into the fabric of universal law that cannot be violated even if the entire natural world conspired against you. The hidden truth operating here is that you're not begging for blessings or hoping someone takes pity on your situation. You're claiming what's already been guaranteed. What already belongs to you by spiritual birthright. What's been secured by force, infinitely more powerful than any obstacle standing in your way. Behind the scenes, these covenant promises operate with legal weight in dimensions that supersede human authority, governmental systems, or economic conditions. When the universe makes a binding agreement, it doesn't break it because of a recession, or inflation, or political instability. The supply you're connected to exists outside the closed system of scarcity that most people are trapped within. The transformation happening in your understanding right now is the bridge between where you are and where you're going. This shift from beggar mentality to covenant consciousness changes how you approach every financial decision from this point forward, how you respond to temporary setbacks, how you carry yourself through seasons that would have previously triggered panic. The impact of truly grasping that your provision is guaranteed rather than uncertain rewrites your entire emotional relationship with money, dissolving anxiety at its root because you're no longer operating from fear of not having enough. Now, I want to reveal the specific promises that need to become the foundation of your financial identity, because knowing these guarantees intellectually is different from anchoring them so deeply that they override every contrary message your circumstances are screaming. Put down in the comments, "I stand on covenant," if this understanding is settling into your spirit as unshakable truth. There's an ancient text that Florence Scovel Shinn returned to repeatedly because it contains a revelation so powerful that once you truly grasp it, financial anxiety becomes impossible to sustain. The scripture says plainly, "It is God who gives you the power to get wealth, not the power to beg for wealth, not the power to struggle and stress yourself into exhaustion, chasing wealth, but the power to get it, to attract it, to generate it, to magnetize it toward you as naturally as breathing." This power isn't rooted in your education level, your family background, your current job title, or how many hours you're willing to sacrifice. It's a divine endowment, a supernatural capacity built into your spiritual DNA that operates independently of external circumstances. The transformation that happens when this truth penetrates past your intellectual understanding and settles into your gut is profound. You stop looking at your bank account as the source and start recognizing it as merely the channel. You stop measuring your potential by what's currently visible and start operating from what's invisibly guaranteed. Behind the scenes, this shift in perception actually changes how money relates to you, because the universe responds to where you're placing your trust. And when you finally stop trusting in limited human systems and start trusting in unlimited divine supply, everything recalibrates. Here's the hidden truth that will free you from financial anxiety forever. Your provision is not anchored in economic conditions. Read that again and let it sink in. It doesn't matter if analysts are predicting recession. It doesn't matter if inflation is eroding everyone else's purchasing power. It doesn't matter if there's a global crisis or market crash or widespread unemployment. Your access to abundance is connected to a source that exists completely outside the natural system, a dimension of infinite supply that never experiences shortage, never runs dry, never distributes based on scarcity because scarcity doesn't exist there. The journey from scarcity consciousness to abundance consciousness is real. A journey from trusting what you can see to trusting what you can't see. From relying on the visible economy to surrendering to invisible covenant. The impact of making this shift means you stop panicking when the news reports economic downturn because you're not drawing from the same well everyone else is fighting over. You're connected to something else entirely. And the decisions you make from this place of certainty will look like faith to observers, but will feel like simple common sense to you. Now, I wanted to show you how to activate this connection consciously instead of leaving it dormant while you continue struggling in the natural realm like everyone else. Type in the comments, "My source is supernatural." If you're ready to operate from this different dimension of provision, there's a declaration that needs to become so deeply embedded in your consciousness that it overrides every contradictory message your bank account is sending you. The ancient psalm states with absolute certainty, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." Not I might not want someday, not I hope I won't want if I work hard enough, I shall not want, present tense current reality, non-negotiable truth. Lack is not your portion. Shortage is not your destiny. These aren't characteristics that define who you are or limitations you need to accept as permanent features of your life. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that the difference between people who break through and people who stay stuck forever comes down to whether they're willing to claim their true identity. Regardless of what circumstances are screaming, the transformation begins when you stop letting your current situation define what's possible and start letting spiritual truth redefine your situation. Behind the scenes, there's a version of you that already exists in a state of abundance, already walking in provision, already experiencing the breakthrough you're currently fighting for. The journey is about closing the gap between that version and your current experience. And it happens through relentless declaration of what's true in the invisible realm, even when the visible realm hasn't caught up yet. Here's where this gets even more powerful, where the promise becomes so generous, it's almost overwhelming. Another ancient text declares, "My God shall supply all your needs according to his riches in glory." Read that carefully, because most people skip past it without grasping the magnitude. Not according to your salary, not according to your bank account balance, not according to your credit score, your job security, or the limitations you can see with your physical eyes. According to his riches, and we're not talking about a modest savings account or comfortable retirement fund. We're talking about infinite, inexhaustible, unlimited supply that exists in dimensions beyond physical measurement. The hidden truth here is staggering when you really let it penetrate your understanding. The source you're connected to doesn't experience recession. It doesn't run out. It doesn't decrease when you withdraw from it. Your needs being met has nothing to do with whether you deserve it, whether you've earned it, or whether circumstances look favorable. It's based entirely on the nature of the supply itself, which is boundless. The impact of truly embodying this promise rewrites your entire relationship with resources, security, and self-worth, because you're no longer measuring yourself by what you currently have, but by what you're perpetually connected to. Now, I want to reveal something about divine timing that will ignite expectation in your spirit. Because understanding when breakthrough typically arrives changes how you navigate the pressure you're currently under. Write in the comments, "I lack nothing." If you're declaring this as your reality regardless of what your circumstances currently look like. Florence Scovel Shinn documented something throughout her years of spiritual work that should radically shift your expectations about how breakthrough actually arrives. There is a consistent pattern woven through history, through testimonies, through every genuine transformation she witnessed. Divine intervention doesn't typically produce gradual improvements where you slowly inch your way out of struggle over years of disciplined effort. It produces sudden financial turnarounds, dramatic reversals that happen so quickly they defy natural explanation. People who were drowning in debt one week suddenly experience an unexpected windfall the next. Individuals with absolutely nothing sitting at the end of their resources and their hope abruptly step into overflow so complete their lives become unrecognizable practically overnight. This isn't theoretical or metaphorical. These are documented occurrences that happen when the invisible realm breaks through into physical manifestation with force. The hidden truth is that your breakthrough has likely been building pressure behind the scenes for months or even years, accumulating momentum in dimensions you can't perceive. And when it finally bursts through the barrier between spiritual and natural, it doesn't trickle. It floods behind the scenes. Right now, while you're absorbing these words, there are movements happening that will soon manifest as visible evidence in your circumstances. And the impact will be so undeniable that you'll mark this moment as the turning point when everything shifted. The transformation you're experiencing requires a declaration that positions you in this realm of sudden breakthrough rather than gradual struggle. You need to speak something out loud right now that functions as a key turning in a lock, and I need you to say it with absolute conviction, not as wishful thinking, but as present reality. Say this with me. I walk in supernatural provision. Not I hope for supernatural provision someday. Not I'm trying to achieve supernatural provision through my efforts. I walk in it. Present tense current reality, non-negotiable truth. Your words in this moment aren't describing what you wish were true. They're creating what's about to become true by activating dormant possibilities that have been waiting for your conscious participation. When you declare with genuine faith and authority that you walk in supernatural provision, you're not asking permission from some distant deity. You're exercising your divine authority as a conscious creator, commanding your reality to align with spiritual truth rather than temporary circumstances. The journey from where you are to where you're going doesn't require you to see the entire path mapped out in advance. It requires you to take this single step of speaking a new reality into existence before there's any physical evidence to support it. Type in the comments, "Supernal provision is mine." If you're claiming this as your operating reality from this moment forward, there's something urgent you need to understand about this particular moment in time. And it goes far deeper than just the calendar turning over into a new year. January 1st, 2026 isn't just another arbitrary date that humans invented to organize their schedules. It's functioning as a prophetic deadline, a divine appointment, a spiritual marker that carries significance in dimensions beyond your conscious awareness. Florence Scovel Shinn recognized that the universe operates in seasons and cycles, and we're currently inside a particularly potent window where spiritual forces are aligning in such a way that breakthrough becomes exponentially more accessible than it would be during ordinary time. Think about what's happening behind the scenes right now. While most people are just planning parties and making resolutions they'll abandon by February, there's a massive reorganization of resources occurring in the invisible realm. Opportunities being fast-tracked that would normally take years to develop, delays being compressed into accelerated timelines, obstacles being removed that seemed permanently fixed in place. The transformation available in this specific window isn't subject to normal rules of accumulation and growth. What should take months can happen in days. What seemed impossible yesterday suddenly becomes inevitable today. Here's the hidden truth that changes everything about how you should be positioning yourself right now. God operates within appointed times. This isn't random spiritual theory. It's a documented pattern running throughout scripture and human history. Sarah conceived at the appointed time, not when she was young and fertile, but when she was 90 years old. And the miracle was undeniable. Israel was delivered from Egypt at the set time, exactly 430 years after the promise was given, down to the very day. Christ came at the fullness of time, not a moment earlier or later than the cosmic schedule required. And your breakthrough has been scheduled too, marked on a calendar that exists beyond physical time. And this moment you're living in right now is that appointment materializing. The journey you've been on, all the delays and frustrations and seeming setbacks, they weren't mistakes or evidence that you were being punished. They were preparations, positioning you for this exact window when everything converges. The impact of recognizing this pattern means you stop questioning why it took so long and start anticipating what's about to break open. Because when heaven sets an appointed time for something to shift in your life, nothing in the natural realm can stop it from manifesting. Now, I want to reveal what's been happening in the warfare around your finances. Because understanding the resistance you've encountered will confirm just how significant your coming breakthrough actually is. Put down in the comments, "My appointed time is now." If you're recognizing this moment as the divine intersection you've been waiting for, have you noticed that as you've been getting closer to this breakthrough moment, as this year has been drawing to a close, the warfare in your life has intensified, the attacks got more aggressive, the obstacles multiplied, the pressure increased, the resistance strengthened? That's not coincidence, and it's definitely not evidence that you're on the wrong path. It's confirmation. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that spiritual opposition always escalates right before major breakthrough because invisible forces can sense what you can't yet see. They detected that a release was coming, that a shift was being written into your story, that a financial reversal was being orchestrated specifically for you before this year ends. But here's what those opposing forces didn't account for. You're not navigating this breakthrough alone through sheer willpower and determination. Right now, as you're engaged with these words, there's supernatural assistance being activated on your behalf. Angels assigned specifically to wealth delivery are being dispatched to your situation. Angels assigned to financial favor are making connections you couldn't orchestrate yourself. Angels assigned to restoration are recovering what was stolen from you years ago. Angels assigned to multiplication are touching your resources right now, causing them to expand beyond natural explanation. The hidden truth operating behind the scenes is that these spiritual beings are literally interfacing with systems and people in ways you cannot perceive, but will soon see evidence of in your physical reality. They're touching your bank accounts, influencing the thoughts of people who control approvals and releases, moving your paperwork to the top of someone's desk, softening hearts that were previously resistant, creating favorable terms where there were none before. The transformation occurring isn't just internal mindset work, it's external reality being rearranged by forces more powerful than human authority. And there's another dimension to this provision that sounds almost too good to be true until you understand how spiritual law actually operates. Ancient wisdom declares the wealth of the sinner is laid up for the righteous. This isn't about judgment or punishment. It's about divine redistribution, a cosmic rebalancing where resources, currently held by those who misused them, who hoarded them selfishly, who acquired them through exploitation, those resources get transferred to people who will steward them according to higher purpose. The impact of understanding wealth transfer shifts you from fighting for scraps to expecting provision to flow from unexpected sources, because the finances you need aren't lost or unavailable. They exist right now, stored up, preserved, marked with your name, waiting for the appointed time of release. Now, I want to show you the final declaration that seals everything we've built toward. Because what you speak in these closing moments will determine how quickly what's already in motion manifests in your bank account. Type in the comments, "Wealth is transferring to me." If you're claiming this divine redistribution as your current reality, if you've made it this far, then you know this wasn't just another video that randomly crossed your path. Something brought you here and kept you engaged through this entire journey, and that matters. The fact that you're still with me right now tells me you're genuinely ready for the transformation we've been unpacking together. Look, if this message resonated with you, if you felt those shifts happening as we moved through these revelations, I want to invite you to become part of this community. Hit that subscribe button because there's so much more. We're going to explore together about consciousness, spiritual breakthrough, and the mechanics of manifestation that actually produce real results in your life. This is just the beginning of what's available to you, and I'd love to know you made it all the way through. Write in the comments, "This message was meant for me, so I can see that this content is landing where it needs to land, connecting with people who are genuinely ready for what's coming." Your comment creates energy that helps this. Reach others who need it just as desperately as you did when you first clicked. If something shifted inside you while we've been together, go ahead and hit that like button. Not because I'm asking you to, but because it acknowledges the connection we've built here, the transformation that's beginning in your life right now. There's a video right here that takes this even deeper, exploring the specific techniques Florence Scovel Shinn taught about speaking your world into existence. It's the natural next step on this path. Click and continue with me over there because your breakthrough is just getting started. Thank you.